Then you mentioned the role of Aida. I remember we had a wonderful experience about a little over a year ago when Miss Price went up to school in Harlem to meet with some Harlem school children because she had written a storybook version of the Aida story, a story for children, and she went up to read it to them. And then she went to a big assembly with several hundred kids and to take questions, and they all adored her. And she sang for them, and some of the questions were so wonderful, so perceptive. I'll never forget the one little girl who, the questions got bolder and bolder, and she finally went up to her, Miss Price, and asked, "Was it hard for you growing up?" And Miss Price said, "Well, darling, let me turn it around. Is it hard for you growing up?" And the little girl went, "Yes." and she said, "Was it like family and friends and problems in school?" And she said, "Yes." And she said, "I just want to tell you that I promise you, it will get better. It will get better." And the little girl just walked away like, "Oh." But you were asked then by one of those school children what your favorite role was, and you said Aida. And do you want to say why?
Well, first I'd like to give appreciation for all these accolades you gave me from that visit, which was a wonderful one. My brother is on the board of directors at this particular school. It was his idea, and I was the person that really gained so much from it, because in all of the places that I've ever sung, all the halls, I've never been more nervous than in front of these kids, from what, 5 to 10, I think. Why is that my favorite role? I think Aida is my favorite role because Aida is myself. And I am Aida in many senses. And she has grown as a character through the years by things that have happened to me, things that have happened in my country, things that have happened in my state, things that are very precious. I don't want to be misunderstood. It is not for the obvious reasons, because the obvious reason is that this is my costume, this wonderful color that I am, the whole aura makes it easier for me to sing her, because I do not have to do any research on how I look. Number one. Number two, as a human being, I tried to portray, and I think Aida perhaps will be my opera legacy. Aida, which everyone seems to forget, and which I never played her as, was not a slave. Aida was royalty. She was captured and brought and made a slave, but she was never a slave, which is very, very, very strong for me. The only, in my interpretation, although as the protagonist is faced with a needy, she is princess to princess. And bowing her head was off limits for me, because this, I felt I had things to speak about in my way here, in this part, about everything I felt at any time. I never was subservient in any of my performances of Aida to anyone except Amanazaro, who was my father, the king. It was not a tiny thing, but it was all too, even in the duet with Amneris, where she is thinking she is dominant. She is not. She never could make me a servant, which is one of the reasons, I think, that she chose me to be her handmaid. It says, if you can't keep your enemies inside. Okay. It is my favorite role because it is myself. She's strong, she's a patriot. She made the sacrifices for all the right things, for all the right reasons. Unfortunately, the only thing that is a little bit off the beaten path about Edith Aida for me, but then it is that at the end of the opera is that she did not totally resist being a weak for Radames. She deserved better from herself. And that's what I told the young, excuse me, getting back to I Wander So. I don't talk much. I've been singing so many years, I don't talk much. I can't shut me up today. And what I told him, it was a young man, I think he was about 6 or 7 years old. I said, I would like to change that ending. That's what I just said to
if you could change the story, how would you change it?
That's how I would change it.
Yeah. But I just wanted to ask one more question, since you've spoken so much of all the great opera composers you've worked with, but there were several living composers, especially Samuel Barber, with whom you had a very close relationship with, I know, who wrote the Hermit songs for you, which you sing beautifully, and your record of Knoxville Summer, it's unbelievable. And then, of course, as most of you I'm sure know, in 1966, the Metropolitan Opera opened its new house. The debut of the house, the new home, was with a new opera by Samuel Barber, Antony and Cleopatra, written for Miss Price.
I don't mean to interrupt. I want to thank you very much for this, because speaking of many things that I've been wandering around about and speaking, the Knoxville 1915 has special meaning for me, because I recorded that composition about 1 month after my father had died. The poem itself is so exemplary
James Agee.
of my child, of all the things that I've talked to you about, the community in Laurel and all the things, that somehow I got through it. That is the sense when, I thank you for reminding me of it, because it brings back my father's strength and my mother's strength and the quilts on the front lawn and the lawn chairs he used to make. And I took that, instead of making it a negative experience, which was very difficult for me, and I put it, and it's there forever, for me, for no one else. I put my feelings about my papa right in here, from here, and it's there forever. It's dedicated to him. It is the way I felt about him, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate your reminding me of that. Samuel Barber was a great friend. He wrote most of that opera, Antony and Cleopatra, at my house. My housekeeper made fried chicken that he loved so much. Not just he. Some great conductors have been fed there. He was really, aside from all the other things that I've told you about, focus and not failing. It was Sam's score, Barber's score, which is magnificent, that kept me focused. It is the most wonderful music, just music. And afterwards, he was devastated. Speaking also of that focus that Blow will tell, I was locked in the tomb before my first entrance, but I never stopped singing. Because technically there were so many things at the Metropolitan during this time that were not perfected. But in regards to the stage and everything, you know, the stage and everything. But I never stopped singing, and I haven't till now.
So thank you so much. We're all honored.
Thank you. I hope I didn't matter.